I'm not African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me.
Exactly what you said. Apartheid economy is still continuing.
And if so many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves, then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves.
So that one move from the Nigerian government to say we are now going to take ownership of our own uranium, they went from realizing about $1 billion in uranium resources to over 300 billion a year.
When we did the structural adjustment program, when we were persuaded to devalue our currency every week for 32 years.
Welcome to Afriscope TV, your trusted voice for Pan-African truth, empowerment, and critical global awareness. If this is your first time here, be sure to like, share, and most importantly subscribe to our channel. Subscribing helps amplify our mission to bring unfiltered African stories to you and the world. Today, we uncover 10 shocking deals that have quietly kept Africa poor, dependent, and exploited. These aren't theories. They are facts grounded in decades of economic control, policy manipulation, and covert influence. Number 1 is France's Colonial Pact. To this day, 14 African countries are required to keep a portion of their foreign reserves in France's central bank. Under this system, France earns interest while these countries must borrow back their own money, with limited access and control. It's economic control disguised as legacy policy. If France truly respects African sovereignty, why keep African wealth under lock and key in Paris? Do you support Captain Ibrahim Traore and the AS alliance in their bold stand to permanently end French influence in their countries? Let us know in the comment section. Support this work by clicking Super Thanks or becoming a member of Afriscope TV.
Between 1958 and 1961, France did something absolutely horrible. France made the Francophone African countries, and I don't even want to use that terminology, but I only use it for the purposes of conversation. The 14 countries which were formally, but still colonized by the French, they were forced to sign a document that they called the Pact for the continuation of colonization. You heard me. The Pact for the continuation of colonization. If you want your independence, you must sign this. Guinea, Secretary said absolutely not. Mali said absolutely not. France, pack your bags and go on back home. France could not believe it. Could not understand that an African country, these monkeys, do not want to be affiliated to France. They said, we will show you. So history tells us France went into those two countries, took everything that they thought they had brought to those two countries, including the last teaspoon and chair, proceeded to pour concrete into the sewage pipes, completely devastating the two economies. The then newly appointed president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, in his efforts to rescue these two economies, created the first ever union of any African states, Ghana, Guinea, and Mali. But what that did was it made the other African countries realize that if they go against France, this was the fate that was waiting them. So what do? Wait the page. And they signed. What did the pact say? 1. The pact said, you monkeys, you don't know how to manage your money. So you shall deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Central Bank under the control of the French Minister of Finance. And that France is going to take your deposits from the individual countries, pool them together, invest them in the French stock market under the French name. And you, monkeys, you may or may not know the returns. Latest figures are showing this is still going on since 1958. France today is collecting out of Africa over $500 billion before investing. And when they finish investing this money, for every 14 billion out of Africa, they're recognizing over 300 billion. Now do the math. So when it's actually said and done, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars every year, and we, the poor Africans, are gladly giving it to France. And the same France has the audacity to look at us and call us poor people. 1958. They went further with the pact. You see, we will also print your own money. We will print your money for you. They instituted what they were calling the CFA, special currency for the African countries, and that only France can print that money for you. They went on to say all the contracts, large contracts, public and private, French companies have the first right of refusal. All your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. Now, my brothers and sisters, if one of you was to wake up one morning and you're president of one of those countries, and your chief of staff walks in first day and starts reading you out the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, what power do you have? None. And the same countries that are stealing from Africa, they have the audacity to look at Africa and say, Africans, what's wrong with you? Why can't you all take care of yourselves? Yeah. Well, let's start by leaving our $500 billion on the continent. But what they do instead, they want to throw you with a smoke screen. Your African leaders are corrupt. Well, you know, I gave you that. I mean, not all African leaders are corrupt. Africa is a family. No family is complete without crazy Aunt Sally and crazy Uncle Tom. Nobody's perfect. Okay, fine, so I'll give you that. Their own figures are saying 50 billion is getting out of Africa from corruption. Fine, I give you that. But you do not want me to engage in a conversation that's solely limited to the $50 billion out of Africa through corruption. First, you don't tell me where it's going. You simply tell me it's getting out of Africa. But secondly, there's a bigger thief. You got two thieves, one with a briefcase with 50 billion and the other thief with a briefcase with 500 billion. I am a smart woman. You want me to ignore the one with 500 billion and put all my energies on a suitcase with 50? And by the time the one with 500 billion is done investing, we are talking trillions. Now, do you see how quickly the funds out of Africa from corruption become the larger chunk under the table? And they want you to stay under the table. So you never have to talk about what is on the table. We must wake up, Africans. We must think about our situations. How did we get here? Are we willing to let France...
Number 2 is Niger's uranium for France's energy. France powers its cities with uranium from Niger, yet 80% of Niger's population lacks electricity. French companies pay below market rates while the real wealth flows to Europe. How can a nation sit on gold yet live in darkness? Who is really benefiting? Support independent journalism with a super thanks or by joining our channel community.
If I may use the example of what happened in Niger when the government decided they were going to take over the mining of their uranium. The French companies that were mining the uranium were paying the government 80 cents a kilo for the uranium, and then turning around and selling the uranium to the rest of the world at 200 euros a kilo. So that one move from the Nigerian government to say we are now going to take ownership of our own uranium, they went from realizing about $1 billion in uranium resources to over 300 billion a year. Do you realize what I'm talking about? No amount of NGO could bring that kind of money. And this is only one mineral. Now imagine the country taking inventory of all their minerals and benefiting from their natural resources like the rest of the countries in the Western world. That is what African leaders need to look at.
Do you see that in the horizon of African leaders right now?
They're
do
gonna
you
have
see
to-
them? Who do you see as the standout winners of that kind of change? And who do you think is still chasing AID contracts?
Let me tell you, we need to look at what's happening in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. President Traore is standing up. He is saying the natural resources in Burkina Faso, they belong to the people of Burkina Faso. Niger is doing the same thing. Mali is doing the same thing. Every leader must look at what's happening in the Sahel nations to say, like anybody else, you must take care of your people. You have your natural resources. You have everything you need to take care of your people. Why do you continue to be beggars? Look at what is being brought in by not only USAID, but all the NGOs in your country. It's peanuts. It's a joke.
Number 3 is Nigeria's secret oil contracts with Britain. Nigeria is rich in oil but still imports refined fuel and suffers fuel scarcity. Why? Because decades-old contracts gave foreign companies control over oil extraction, pricing, and export. Much of the wealth never touches Nigerian hands. Can a country be rich in resources yet poor by design? Your support helps us keep telling these stories. Tap a super thanks now.
So tell me, Nigeria, after 60 years of mining oil, why up to date you don't have a processing and a refinery to purify your oil and sell petrol to the world? That's why the oil pipes of Nigeria passing through villages where poverty is worst. British Petroleum. And Nigeria has to import back its own fuel as a processed product at a price 3 to 4, 5 times more than they send it out of the country. Those mines don't belong to us. The government signed a document with the British government, and it's in the constitution. It's in the law that Britain will mine this place for the next 99 years. I don't know how long is the lease. So you have the same law that you vote leaders into, and when they get into this law, the Western world always make sure the person going onto that chair understands the law, which protects us. So the revolutionaries that are coming in now seem to have poor knowledge of law.
Number 4 is South Africa's car assembly limitation. According to Julius Malema, South Africa signed deals that allow only assembly of foreign car brands like BMW and Volkswagen VW, restricting innovation and local manufacturing. Why are African engineers assembling for Germany instead of designing for Africa? Join our community through channel membership and stay informed.
All of this, we don't produce television.
But why?
Because this government has gone into trade agreements with other countries. Let's take Germany, for instance. Our trade agreements with Germany says we cannot manufacture a car. We will assemble the cars from Germany. And we don't just assemble, we put money to assemble German cars. Why should we do that? Why should we not manufacture our own car? Where is the market? Africa loves everything South African. They will buy from us. We produce a fighter jet. A fighter jet. If we can produce a flying machine, shouldn't be difficult to produce a car. Denel has demonstrated that we've got the capacity to do this. Denel manufactures army vehicles. And why are we not producing a car? It's trade agreements with Europe, with America, with UK, that you are not going to get involved in this.
Number 5, IMF Structural Adjustment Programs, SAPs. In the 80s and 90s, the IMF and World Bank imposed policies like subsidy removals, privatization, and reduced public spending. This crippled economies, destroyed healthcare and education, and created dependency. Can you build a nation when decisions come from outside your borders? Super thanks go a long way to keep this platform alive.
The tragedy of Nigeria began in 1986 when we did the structural adjustment program. When we were persuaded to devalue our currency every week for 32 years. When I went to school, and many of you are here, the Naira was $1.50. The Naira was almost £1 sterling. They came here, persuaded some brilliant men from Harvard and the World Bank that weekly devaluation was wonderful. 32 years of devaluing your currency until we hit 527. And they were still telling us that the Naira was still overvalued. That brought poverty, misery upon us. Then interest rates went to 30%. So nobody could build a factory, start a farm, produce anything, or create jobs. Because every time you bring in a shipload of rice, you also bring in a shipload of unemployment.
Number 6, Ghana and Ivory Coast's cocoa trap. Together they produce over 60% of the world's cocoa, but earn less than 10% of global profits. Western corporations control prices, brands, and profits while African farmers live in poverty. Who gets rich off African sweat? Is this trade or economic manipulation? Show your support by sharing this video and commenting below. Number 7, AGOA, the US economic filter. The African Growth and Opportunity Act allows duty-free exports to the US, but only if African nations follow certain political and economic conditions. It's market access with strings attached. Is it opportunity, or is it economic gatekeeping? Become a channel member today and stand for African sovereignty. Number 8, the land grab crisis. Western farms have leased millions of hectares of African farmland for virtually nothing. Local communities are displaced, water is diverted, and food is exported. Africans grow food they can't eat. Who gave them the right to our land? Where is the justice for African farmers? This is why we ask you to support us with super thanks or a share.
So return the land to our people so that their dignity can come back. When we say Sfunum Tlava, we are not joking, because we want the land to be returned into the hands of our people. Without the land, you are nothing. When you don't have property, you are equal to nothing. So when we say we want the land, we mean we want to restore your dignity.
To all my white brothers from Germany and from South Africa, if you are not careful the way you handle land, you are going to leave your children with a snake in the back. Because these young people you see here, one day when they wake up and they ask each other, where is our land? After being to Australia and they are told you are illegal immigrant. They go to America and they are told you are an alien. They go to Britain and they are told you are a foreigner. And they come back home here and they are landless. Your own children, you will turn in your grave. It's our children who start victimizing your children. If you are smart enough to hear a fool, start making arrangements to relinquish some of the land into the black hands, to diffuse the anger of the people.
Number 9, GMO and seed laws backed by corporations. Multinational companies have lobbied African governments to pass laws that ban traditional seed saving and force farmers to buy patented seeds. This undermines centuries of indigenous farming. How can Africa feed itself if its seeds are owned abroad? Stay informed, subscribe now and join the resistance against silent exploitation.
So serious that even in Tanzania, it's possible to be fined upwards of 200,000 euro for a peasant farmer using seed that belongs to one of the UPOV members who invested in creating that seed or did whatever it was they did to manipulate that seed. If we allow them to get away with UPOV, they're going to be able to get away with all of these other activities likewise.
Number 10. Blackwater founder in the DRC. Eric Prince, founder of the US private security firm Blackwater, once called for recolonization of Africa. He quietly registered a mining firm in the DRC to extract cobalt and rare minerals. Prince is closely linked to US President Donald Trump.
All this talk of illegal migration in Europe, in the United States, it ultimately comes down to a contest of what is governance. Who is governed? Which countries are governed well? And if so many of these countries around the world are incapable of governing themselves, then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country a better
People on the left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes. Enough. Because if you go to these countries and you see how they suffer under absolutely corrupt, made-up governments that are just criminal syndicates, the people of Africa, the people of Latin America, a lot of them deserve better. Now,
but President Trump also said something that raised a lot of eyebrows in Kinshasa, across the region, and on the continent.
We're getting for the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo as part of it. They're so honored to be here.
What does it mean when former war contractors own mining companies in Africa? Who really controls our resources? Support this truth-telling platform with a super thanks or by becoming a member. Conclusion. These deals weren't accidental. They were engineered to keep Africa reliant, fractured, and poor. But a new generation is asking questions and demanding answers. Africa is not a resource basket. It is a rising power with a voice, a will, and a future to shape. If you believe in this message, don't just watch, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and help us grow this Pan-African movement. Together, we are rewriting Africa's story, one truth at a time. Disclaimer. This video is intended for educational and informational purposes. Afriscope TV adheres strictly to YouTube's community guidelines. We do not promote hate, violence, or discrimination against any individual, nation, or group. Our goal is to educate and empower,